But Arteta's comments after the game were interesting, and he did start David Raya.
Yeah.
So David Raya or Aaron Ramsdale?
I honestly couldn't pick. I think Ray had a good game. He looked comfortable, especially for a first start away at a hostile ground like Goodison, where we haven't played very well in the last few seasons. He seemed comfortable. Um, just a decent performance, but it's so difficult when you've got two. He's trying to do this two keeper system. I don't think you can choose one or the other. I think it probably is going to be something where it depends on the opponents, depends how they are in training. I think we could. I don't think we are going to be able to predict who's playing in goal each week. There's potential it could be trying to ease Raya in to be the starter, but I think for the next sort of 10, 15 games, it could be either of them. And to be honest, I'm happy with that. They're both great keepers. Both have similar qualities. Raya potentially better at those long balls compared to Ramsdale, and maybe a bit more assured. But Ramsdale is probably has those better like shot stopping moments, those saves that get us a point or keep us the 3 points. And yeah, I think it depends on the opponent, but they're both brilliant keepers, really.
That's a bit too on the fence for me. David Ray, I've got some stats for you from his game. He made 30 of his 32 passes completed successfully, which is 94%. The only two he didn't was two of his long balls, which he got 7 out of 9 passes passed successfully. 100% of his short and medium passes were successful. And runs out of the box, 1 out of 1. High claims, 2 out of 2. And he made 1 successful clearance. Um, and I think it was the right game to bring him into because of the fact that I think Everton had the threat with a forward with Beto starting up front and with the centre backs of Tarkowski and Branthwaite. They were tall, they were there, physical if need be. Decore as well, Onana as well, who had a great game against Arsenal at the back end of last season. So I think it was the right game to bring him because I think it was the perfect game for him. It'd be interesting to see going forward if Arteta decides that it's game specific or if it's long term, if it's one of them is going to be my goalkeeper and it's only going to be one, and this is a period of time where he's going to be trying both. Um, I don't think you buy David Raya unless you want him to be your number one. I know people have been comparing it to Jason Steele and Bart Verbruggen at Brighton, but I think both those players are at two different ends of their career. Verbruggen is at the beginning of his career and he's got the potential and it looks like he's going to eventually be taking up the mantle as number one goalkeeper. Whereas Jason Steele is doing a fantastic job at the moment, but is probably going to be on his way out at some point. Whereas David Raya and Aaron Ramsdale are both, I would say, Ramsdale is entering his peak and Raya is in this peak. So I think that eventually Raya is going to be the number one goalkeeper. It'll be interesting to see that, especially the next two games for Arsenal. Like I said, Champions League, who starts? Is he going to rotate again? And the North London derby, that's arguably Arsenal's biggest game of the season so far. I mean, obviously Man United was a big game, but against your rivals, it's a big game. So I think by the next time we record this podcast, we're going
We
to
might
find
know.
out a lot.
We might know. I think yeah, you could be right. It'll either be. I think if Raya does start that Spurs game, he could be the one coming in. But I wouldn't be surprised with Arteta if he's trying to do like a two keeper system where he is changing it depending on the opponent. I feel like that's such a Arteta thing to try and really think ahead of the curve and be like, right, this is something. There's games where Ramsdale does struggle, so we'll bring in Raya, but then there's games where Ramsdale would be better than Raya, so start him. I I couldn't pick it. I do really like David Raya, and I wouldn't be upset if he did become our starting keeper because he's so good and his stats last season were better than Ramsdale's. So maybe if I did have to pick one without any sort of thought of emotion, it probably would be David Raya on paper. Um, but I feel like it is still quite harsh for Aaron Ramsdale.
Do you think if this was Pep Guardiola trying to do this with Edison and another great, fantastic goalkeeper like say it's Ortega who's on the bench now, and he was trying to rotate them, and in some games where Man City were coming under pressure, they might go Ortega because they're a better shot stopper, but teams which aren't going to press and drop deep, Edison's a better on this with the ball at his feet. Do you think if there's Pep Guardiola, someone who has years of experience, won all the trophies there is, that they'd be like, oh my god, this revolutionary, and everyone would be following? Or do you think just because it's Arteta and Arsenal that, people are criticising a bit more?
It's difficult because I know it's good to change the players based on who you're coming up against, and it can give you an advantage in some cases. But then you've got the other hand where even in Guardiola's system where he does change players, maybe not so much this season, but in the last few seasons quite regularly, he still has starters that start every week. Haaland, Rodri, Ruben Diaz, they are the spine of that team and will start every single week almost. Is the goalkeeper one of those? In Ederson, obviously for Man City, is going to be. But if it could give you a tactical advantage, and we'll see as the season goes on whether it works, it could be something that other teams start picking up. I don't know. But
Maybe it's the solution for Arsenal not having to spend £100 million on a goalkeeper. You just have two £50 million goalkeepers,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you play to their strengths.
Yeah, possibly.